What's going on, everybody? My name's Stefan Coons, and I am the CEO and owner of Pursuit Health and Performance, and this is the Everyday Pursuit podcast. I hope you guys are organized. I hope in your life you have some organization, because I could tell you that I'm kind of organized. I'm pretty organized, but my lack of organization used to kill me. Like, it was a huge barrier to my success because I could only do so much because I wasn't organized. And another thing is, a lot of people mistake organization for laziness, or laziness for a lack of organization. And I'm going to break down how, right? So if you feel lazy or you feel unorganized, they kind of go together. But one of the biggest things I hear people say is, I'm just lazy. I don't know. I'm just lazy. Cause I ask, like, so I'm curious, why are you kind of not following a routine right now? And the answer is, for most people that I'm on a call with, say, well, I don't know. I'm just kind of like lazy. I don't actually think these people are lazy, because the second question I ask is, okay, do you have a job? Yes, I have a job. Do you go to work like when you're assigned to go to work every day? Yes. Do you show up to work on time, at least like most of the time, enough to not get fired? Yes. Do you have a spouse? Most people have a spouse or a kid or somebody, right? A relationship. Like, do you just blow that person off? Like, do you do things for those people, even if you kind of don't feel like it? Yeah, of course I do, right? Like, my wife asked me to do the dishes, or my son wants me to play with him and I'm tired, and but I do it anyways. Okay, so you're not lazy, actually. Um, is on your free time, is all you do is sit around. You do literally nothing besides lay around. No, I like do stuff and whatever. Okay, so I don't think you're lazy. I think you're disorganized. And this is why disorganization creates a mindset and a perception of laziness. If you feel like you don't have time to do things, you won't do it, right? Because one of the number one excuses, as you can imagine, I hear is, I'm just really busy, or I don't have time. Or some people are really honest and they go, well, I have time, but like I don't really make time. But why? Why aren't you making time? Now, we could talk about maybe it's not a priority to them and yada, yada, yada. But really, it just comes down to them being unorganized. And I know this because after coaching hundreds of people, and by the way, when I say coaching, the reason we use the word coach is because I'm not a trainer. A trainer goes to the gym and they work out, the physical workout, the reps, the sets, and they leave. That's not what we do. We do coaching. So as much as a life coach can be a life coach, that's what we are. Except I would go toe to toe with any life coach, right? Because sure, I'm not giving specific relationship advice, but there's a joke in the industry that trainers are underpaid therapists, and we really are. Because I want to know the facet of everybody's life. Now, I don't need to know the intricacies of the relationship, but I do want to know, like, is home life good? Is everything else good? And I'm creating an environment to change their body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so that's to me, that's like a life coach. I'm helping them, coach them through life struggles. Yes, we're primarily doing nutrition and training, but I'm going to tell you right now that that's like the freaking gateway drug to success. I can't tell you how many people that come into our program, or just that I've seen from other coaches, that lose 40 pounds and everything in their life improves. And I've talked about this in a lot of other episodes, and it's true. It is a transformation. So going back to the organization thing, this is what happens. They join the program, and I ask, our coaches will ask, like, well, how long do you like, how many hours a week do you have to dedicate towards fitness? Some people will say, oh, 2 hours, 3 hours. Okay. Oh, I could go 3 days a week for 25 minutes. I could go maybe 4 days a week, definitely 3 for 45 minutes. And me, I say, okay, cool. Do you have like a Google? Like, how do you keep track of your day? This blows my mind. I would say 60% of the adults I know, maybe more, don't have a calendar. Now, I get it. You're like, I do the same thing every day. I go to the same job. I have 9 to 5, whatever. It's funny because when you're a kid, like when you're in middle school and high school and even college, you probably had a planner, right? Like you had to follow some organization because you had this class and this homework and this thing and this thing and this period and that period. So what that is you had a lot of tasks. You were goal oriented. You had to finish these assignments on this time. You had, you know, even some people as an adults too, like you have to wake up, get the kids ready, do all this. And sure, you can do all that in your head. I did spend years in my adult life being semi-successful, not having a planner. But if I did what I did now and I didn't have a planner, I wouldn't be successful. Because once you get to a certain point, you need to like put out time for yourself. And that, like, I think the adults that don't, they don't have an organized life. It's just kind of like, well, I do the same thing every day and whatever. It's hard for them to find time because they can't visually see it. And then they don't go to the gym. And then because they don't go, they say they're lazy. What if I sat down with you and I said, okay, what time do you wake up? I wake up at 7 a.m. Let's just throw a number out there, which we'll get to why you should wake up earlier in a second. That's like the biggest life hack ever. It's the lowest hanging fruit, waking up early. If you want to have a better life, wake up at 5:30 a.m. every day. Now you might say, oh, the weekends or whatever. Okay. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. 5 days a week. Or what I do is basically 6 days, and it adds so much to your life, but I'm going to cover that in a second. So I look at their calendar. Sorry, I'm all itchy. I look at their calendar and or build one out for them if they don't have one. And I say, okay, you wake up at 7:30. What time do you like have to be done with work? And a lot of people we train don't have kids, but if they had kids, okay, or a spouse, what time do you like have to be done? Like you have to be done with working out and shopping, like hanging out with your spouse. Most people say like, oh, 6 or 7. Well, how many hours do you work in the day? Now we work with a lot of veterans and first responders that work 12 or 14-hour shifts, but those people also work 3 days a week. So, generally, so they also have 3 to 4 days off every single week. So on those days, they don't get a lot done. I mean, maybe they just work and exercise or just go to work and that's a rest day. But for most people that work a 9 to 5, you still have time to go to the gym. Now, when I was in the military, I worked all types of things: days, swings, mids, 12-hour shifts, 14-hour shifts, Panama schedule, 8-hour 9 to 5 job. I've done it all. And with each one of those things, I was still able to work out 5 or 6 days a week for an hour to an hour and a half. Now, you do have to take away time from other things, but I learned this really early on. I would say, like, in each of those things in my head, like, I don't have time. I'm working all this time. Now, if I work a 14-hour shift, I'm probably not going to train that day. Once again, though, you're only working that 3 days a week. So I would maybe go on a light jog one of those days. And then the other 4 days I would train hard. I had the whole day off. Right. So you can integrate it in, but unless you visually see, you won't feel like you have time. So, I had this client, like, I don't know, like 6 or 8 months ago, literally struggled with organization, always said he didn't have time. This person did have one kid and was married. The kid was like 5 or 6. So it was a young child. And he's like, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. And I'm like, well, what does that mean to you? He's like, oh, I work 8 hours and then I get home and then blah, blah, blah. And we like ended up actually seeing like what he did in his time. And that's not even including the time they probably waste on the phone. And he'd basically like wake up at the very last minute. So he's already missing time in the morning. And right when he wakes up, he has to wake his kid up. So he has no time to like get to himself, get him in the right mindset. Then when he comes home from work, he basically like starts cleaning and cooking and kind of doing like mom/dad duty and doesn't have time with his family. I mean, like has time with his family, but doesn't have time for himself. And then at the very end of the night, okay, he's like, I'm spending time with my family. So he's like, when do I have time? And I'm like, dude, that's a great question. Cause I used to struggle with that. Remember, I've been a parent since I was 19 years old. I'm 32 now. And I got another one on the way in a few months. So I'm very familiar with that. I said, hey, look, you might have to just get up early. Like what time does your kid get up? Oh, they get up at 7:30. Okay. What time do you get up? Oh, I get up at like 7:15. What time do you go to bed? Oh, 11 or 12. There you go. That is where you're missing it out. What do you do? What time does your kid go to bed? 8:30? What do you do from 8:30? Let's count these out. 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12, right? Ish, right? So you're talking about two and a half. If they went bed, like my son goes to bed at 8:30. So his was like 7:30. So 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11. So that's like 3.5 hours, right? And don't make fun of me for counting on my fingers if you're watching this on Facebook. But so 3.5 hours. Now I get it. I like to relax, but like, do you need to watch 3.5 hours of TV? Great question. If you're used to watching 3.5 hours of TV and like watching a couple shows or watching a movie and then watching some shows and sitting on the couch and snacking, then of course you feel like you need that. But I would say most people need like 1 to 2 hours at the most to really decompress and relax. And I know because I do this. So you can't take 30 minutes out of your TV time and go to bed 30 minutes earlier and wake up 30 minutes earlier and exercise for 30 minutes every day or 5 days a week. He's like, well, I guess, but I'm not a morning person. And as I go on in this conversation, all I'm hearing, right? And by the way, he ended up being really successful in the future. I'll get to that. So he ended up basically being like, well, I'm not a morning person. I'm like, okay, but you know what you are? You're an out of shape person. So you're saying you have no time anywhere, right? Like during work, you can't do it on lunch. When you get home, you're immediately busy till relax time with your wife. So you can't find any other time. Where do you think you could find time? Like if you were forced to find time. He's like, probably the morning. I'm like, then that's what you need to do. I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning for an entire year, almost every day, to go to the gym when it opened at 4:45 on base so I could be at work at 6. That sucked. But that was the only time I could do it. I had to go home and take care of my son. And guess what? I was in bed early. My son went to bed, let's just say at like 8. I was in bed at 9. I only got an hour without the kids, or I only, got like an hour of relaxing. And sure, it was tiring, but I also had weekends off. So on the weekend, I could sleep in, go to the gym, hang out, like that's part of the process. Okay. I'm not saying you even have to wake up early, but you need to find a time that's not going to be a barrier to you. And the only way you're going to do that is for most people is a visualization, right? And creating organization. Because when I block time out, even I'm a super busy entrepreneur. But when I block time out, and I have friends that own multiple businesses that are busier than me, they use Google Calendar, basically everybody, all of our clients, we teach them to do that. And they block time out from noon to 1. They shut their phone off, they put on silent, and that's their time. And it's hard because if you go, oh, I'm going to work out at like lunchtime, especially if you had a lax schedule, or a lot of people work from home in the pandemic, you don't really start, or you get on to work on time. So you start your workout late and then you're busy and then you end it early, and it's supposed to be an hour, but it ends up being like 30 minutes. I've been there. And so following your calendar is always going to be better because your calendar is logic and your actions are more emotion based, right? Like if I actually did what we call time blocking, okay, and I sat there and I said, all right, in the morning, I have morning routine. I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to do my devotionals. That's from 5:30 to 6:30. Then at 6:30, I'm going to walk in the treadmill for 30 minutes and shower and eat. And that's from 6:30 to 7:30. And I actually follow the schedule. Do you know how productive and fit I would be? And look, I'm not perfect at following my schedule, but that's kind of how it looks. And it doesn't have to be the same Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday, but you know this. The more consistent it is, the same it is every day, the easier it is to follow through and the harder it is to mess it up, because it just becomes a habit. Like, this is just what I do, right? Like for 90% of people I know, they're like, I get coffee every morning. Why? Yeah, you're tired, but it's a habit. Like, that's just what you do. That's just like how you wake up. And you don't really have to write it down. I get it. But like when you very first started, if you could remember, you probably are like, oh, I got to make my coffee and do like my morning routine. Now it's just part of what you do, right? So your rest of your day is kind of the same way. And you might say, I hate living by, the same guy goes, well, I hate living by a calendar. It seems like so controlled. I go, so you living by it, first of all, you're on your phone all day, right? Checking things, like everybody's on their phone at least multiple times per day. So you're already looking at like stuff. So you're saying to have an organized life makes you feel like you're not in control. Like, oh, I have to follow this regimented schedule. I kind of understand that. But right now, you're not in control of your life right now either, because you're saying that all the things you have, you can't make time. That means you actually don't have control of your time. That means all your tasks, your work, you're being a dad, being a husband, being an employee, or I said that work, but whatever other tasks you have, that's in control of you. And you say, I can't find time. To me, that's powerless. Like, oh, I can't find time. I'm too busy. So you want to do these things. You have desires to get in shape. You have desires to start hobbies. You have desires to spend more time with whoever. And when you say, well, I don't have time, to me, that's powerless. Like, the real statement would be, well, I don't know how to make time effectively. That's the real statement. And this is where the laziness comes through. if you feel like you don't have time, you don't do it. And if you don't do it over and over and over again, you do feel lazy. You're like, well, I always just skip it out. But what if you followed a calendar system and I helped you? I like sat down and I blocked out 45 minutes and you actually followed the calendar and you could still do all the things, right? Are you going to have to adjust your life a little bit? Like, sure, right? You might have to wake up an hour earlier. If you have no time, that's your choice, or else don't work out and stay fat and out of shape. But you have to do something, right? So, and also if you're watching this on Facebook, give me a like, comment below, hashtag live if you're watching this live. But you have to do something. And what if I could do that and you could actually work out every day? Like, what would your progress be like then? And I think that that would be a lot more empowering and controlling. And then you would take action and you wouldn't feel lazy, all from being organized. It like, I promise you, like most people are not super lazy. They just don't know how to have a structured, organized life. And so it feels lazy because it becomes easy to blow things off when things aren't tasked, right? If your boss goes, yeah, just like get this work done by like, sometime this week, you're probably going to procrastinate it till the last minute. I would, right? Like I am kind of a procrastinator versus if it's like a deadline, like, hey, I need this project by noon tomorrow. You're like, oh crap. You work harder, you work more efficient, you kind of plan out how long it's going to take you. You have some organization because you're forced to. So if you sit there and you assign yourself an appointment, right? Just like a doctor's appointment, like if you do have a planner or a calendar, do you assign, if you go to the dentist and they go, okay, you have an appointment next month, it's on the 12th and it's from 1 to 2 p.m. Do you put that in your calendar? I would hope so. If you're a responsible adult, hell yeah, I do. So why are you blocking out dentist appointments, kids recitals, maybe work events, but you're not blocking out events for you and time for you and time for yourself and personal development and fitness? And you might say, I don't need to do that. Like well, you do because you're inconsistent and you're not doing it consistently. And you always say, I don't have time. Right. And again, it's super easy to say that or say, oh, I don't feel like it. When you're like, I don't care if you feel like it. Do you say that when you go to the dentist? I don't feel like going. I'm going to miss my appointment. Nope. Why? Well, because there's consequences. You will probably have to like reschedule, or your teeth will rot, or they're going to charge you $100 for a missed appointment. Right. So it's kind of, I've talked about this a lot too, of like taking your temporary emotion and being like, well, I don't really want to go, but like, this is an appointment I need to go to. So I'm going. Same thing with exercise. Well, not like super thrilled about exercising, but I do know I'll feel really good after I go. And this is an appointment that I made for myself. And so I need to follow through with that. And this is another thing about people that view themselves as lazy. They're never confident. I've never met somebody that goes, I'm lazy and I'm confident. Ever, ever, ever. They're contradictory, right? They don't go together. So if you're lazy or you view yourself as lazy, you're probably not confident. Well, where does that come from? Confidence is not, you yelling affirmations in the mirror about like, I'm so good and I'm so happy. And you should have positive talk. That's not what I'm saying. But confidence is really built off of irrefutable evidence of consistent action. That's it. Like if you go to the gym every day, you're sitting there and you're keeping a promise to yourself, that builds confidence, right? Like think about if you were like, hey, I have a spouse and I'm going to go on a date with them every Friday. Okay. And I'm going to like treat them and wine and dine them. And we're going to like talk about our relationship and we're going to therapy and you're doing all these and you never miss an appointment and you worked really hard on your relationship. Would you be confident in your relationship and confident in like you as the spouse? Like I put in a lot of effort. Like, hell yeah, we have a good relationship. I would hope so. Why? Consistent action, irrefutable evidence. That's it. Right. So you can't fake confidence really, right? You can't. You like, and people that, are like lazy, quote, I'm doing air quotes, that are lazy tend to sit there and they feel like I'm not a very motivated person. I'm not waiting to be motivated. That's another thing that people get wrong. You don't wait to feel motivated to take action. You take action when you don't feel like it, and then you feel good from it. This is the cool thing about exercise, guys. Okay. The funny thing about working out is it's actually the one thing that gives you like an immediate benefit, and it reinforces that you just, even though it sucked, you made a good decision immediately. Like you get done working out and 99.9% of the time you feel great for the next like few hours or the whole day, right? Like go on a jog or get some cardio done early in the morning and tell me you don't just feel like just on, like just good and the endorphins release and you just feel like clear headed. Hell yeah, you do. So it's an immediate feedback. Okay. And the more you do that, the more you're like, hey, look, I know I didn't want to do this thing, but like I did it anyways. And I am confident because I'm not somebody that gives into temporary emotions. I'm not somebody that sits there and buys into the whole laziness thing. I make it happen regardless. That's a confident statement, right? You're like, I'm going to win no matter what. Another confident statement. And all that stuff is saying, regardless of, the trials and the tribulations and the how much I feel like it, I'm going to take action. Motivation, right? And this is, I think it ties into organization because motivation comes when people say, well, I don't feel like it. Well, yeah, motivation's a feeling and you're waiting to feel motivated to take action. But just like happiness, like I'm waiting to tell my spouse I love them only when I feel butterflies. Hell no, right? Like, sure, it might line up. You might feel like, oh, I really just feel this sudden feeling of love. And that's the only time I tell them. I hope not. I hope you tell your spouse or your son or your dad that you love them, even when you don't feel this like butterfly lovey-dovey feeling, right? Because you still do things, even if your emotions don't line up immediately because it's logical. And so people don't do that with exercise though. They go, I'm only going to work out when I feel motivated. And we all know, if you don't know, motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling. So if you're only exercising when you're motivated, you will be inconsistent. You could take another approach though. I highly suggest it. That's what I do. It's what all the fit people do that you stare at on Instagram and Facebook all day long. What they do is they work out and they take action. And the action actually creates enough confidence that they take action again. And sometimes action does take confidence. And it's the confidence of knowing like, yeah, I don't want to go, but it's worth it. I don't want to go, but it's worth it. I don't want to go, but I'm going anyways. I'm taking action anyways. And that is really tied into confidence. But again, if you're not organized, you're not going to take action. And if you don't take action, you're not going to have confidence, right? And if you don't have confidence, you're going to say, I'm lazy. That's how it flows. It's not, to me, it's not overly complicated. And the thing is, most grown adults know they're being lazy. Like they know they could be more organized. They know that they're not filling their potential. Yeah, they're putting in a little bit of effort. They're like, get home and just watch Netflix and drink beers and eat snacks. And then they gain 10, 20 pounds over a year and they go, yeah, I don't know. I just like really have a sweet tooth or I really like snacking. And they just like, they undermine that, like, I don't know if undermine's the right word, but they basically just like, okay, their shitty effort. Right. And we've all been there. I've done that. Trust me. Okay. But the thing is, when they go to sleep at night, you have these conversations with yourself. Most people that want to be in the pursuit of excellence, even if they don't seem like it. Okay. Most people have dreams and visions and kind of like, man, I really want this life. Like I imagine me having this life or this relationship or this house or this job or this money or this car, right? We think about it. And we fantasize all day long. And when you go to bed, you really have two choices. Did you win the day or did you lose the day? And I got this from Andy Frisell. He's the CEO of First Form. And I did this for a year, an entire year when I was in college. It's called the Power List. And you basically write down 5 tasks, 5 critical tasks, like workout, schoolwork, go to the grocery store, whatever, your 5 tasks, not things you do like every single day besides working out, because that is a challenging task for some people. So something that you like could easily blow off. So it's an accountability tool and you check it off. And if you don't check off all 5 boxes, you make an L, you lost the day. And if you do all 5, you win the day. And at the end of the month, you see how many days you won and how many days you lost. Feels really good to win like 40, 50 days in a row. Like you feel like a badass. And that's why he started 75 hard. If you've ever heard of that, right? It's winning 75 days in a row, which most people have never done their entire life. And that creates consistency and that creates confidence. And I've seen people that do 75 hard and they come off feeling like a badass and way more confident because they realize what they're capable of. What is 75 hard? 75 days of organization, because you got to do the same thing. You got to plan your workouts, right? Organization that led to consistent action that led to confidence. There you go. I've never met an organized, like a super organized person that would identify as lazy. Now, I understand this person could be really organized and have like low confidence for body image and all that, but like it usually doesn't add up like that. Okay. And sure, they might be not confident in their body, but you know what they are confident in? Probably other areas. And I've met them. I've met organized people that are like really confident in their career and like their relationship, and they're really good at like planning events for the family. And that's where they get their confidence, right? And it's still the same way. They were organized. They had consistent action, not in fitness, but in those areas, and it created confidence in those areas. Imagine if you did it with fitness. And what blows my mind is people do these same frameworks in every other area of their life, and they go, well, fitness is so hard. It's not. And actually, I would say fitness has helped me do the other things. And look, I'm biased, right? Because I'm an athlete and I like working out, and that's me. So I get it that fitness might be hard for you. Just like, education or doing other things, or maybe staying like really organized with my finances. And like my mom's a CPA, but she's not into fitness. So she probably crushes me on organization and all that. So we all have our weaknesses. We all have our strengths. But if you want to get stronger, right? If you want to become more confident, if you want to not feel lazy, then you need to start being more organized. And that honestly starts with something as simple as a freaking Google Calendar and blocking out times you can work out with and seeing what you can do and making some trade-offs and sacrifices. So if it means you got to go to bed an hour earlier to wake up an hour earlier, then that's what it means. And guess what? You can't be, well, nobody else, everybody else does that. People in your situation, right? If you go, well, I have a kid and I have a spouse and blah, cool. Well, everybody that I know that has a just as busy, like a very similar lifestyle to you, they have the same excuse. So why is that person fit and you're not? Like genetics and everything aside, why is that person in shape and you're not? Well, that person's willing to do things that you aren't. They're willing to wake up early. They're willing to meal prep. They're willing to say no to drinking a 6-pack every weekend. They're willing to say no to toxic friends that just want to eat shitty food and party every weekend, right? So they're just saying no and yes to the right things, and you're not. I promise you, though, that person that has a very similar lifestyle or the same lifestyle as you, that's fit while you're not, that person's organized, right? Because you can't be consistent with anything without some type of organization if you're an adult. Like I've never met people, right? Like they're organized, and maybe you're organized in your head, but trust me, when you can visually see it and it's a calculator and you have reminders and things like dinging and telling you, here we go. It keeps you organized. Even for me, this is kind of a little hack. I used to, on my iPhone, like I think of things when I work out, like little things, or right when you lay in bed, right? You start thinking of all these things. And I used to keep a journal next to me, and I would have to get up and write in it because I don't want to lose that idea. It was a really good idea. Now I just use Siri, and my family hates it because my alarm goes off all the time, but I don't forget things, right? I basically, as soon as it comes in my head, I'm like, I'm going to forget that. So I go, hey Siri, set a reminder, or not a reminder, because reminders are little like pops up. I want an alarm, ding, 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 ding. And like, that's why my family hates it. But I'm like, hey Siri, set an alarm for me to text back Joe in 1 hour, 20 minutes. And I brain dump and I go back and I focus. All of a sudden I'm chilling. Ding, 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 ding. I'm like, what? Text Joe. Oh, get it done. That's a form of organization, because I'm not going to set myself up for failure. I'm taking consistent action by, when I have a thought, I make sure that I'm taking down barriers of like, oh crap, I forgot. I literally am super forgetful because I have a million things going on and I decently stressful lifestyle, and I don't want to forget things. So instead of making excuses and like, oh, I'm forgetting, well, I'm so busy, right? And everybody else would coddle me and say, yeah, dude, it totally makes sense. I know you're busy. No, not an excuse. How can I solve that? Okay, I can solve it by setting these alarms that are annoying as shit and that ding super loud, so I can't ignore it. And if I can't ignore it, I won't forget. And I even like snooze them. I'm like, I can't do this right now. Goes off again in 9 minutes. Oh, I can't do this right now. Goes off in 9 minutes. Instead of just like pushing it away. So if I'm willing to do that all day long to stay organized and to not forget things, you can do it too. I've even went as far with clients of like having them set an alarm to remind them to eat certain things. Usually not around working out, but I have clients that go, oh, I forgot to track my food. Oh, I forgot to eat today. I go set an alarm, not a reminder, an annoying ass alarm, because then it goes off and you can't ignore it. And then eventually it will become a habit. I've done it with a client that set an alarm for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 days. And then after eating at a certain time, she stopped setting alarms and her body was giving her like physiological cues to eat, right? It's like, oh, we got to eat at this time. Oh, we got to eat at this time. And so she didn't have to do it. And her like whole thing, when I see this with a lot of men and women, I forgot to eat. That wasn't a thing anymore. Her body was like, hey, it's time. Hey, it's time. But it went through a month of 3 days a week, this annoying alarm going off, buzzing, whatever tone she had on it to keep her doing it. Right. So organization also is just about solving barriers. Like, I can't, right? Why can't you? Are you not making time? Are you not setting reminders? Are you not organized? Are things not in place to set you up for success? Sadly, for most people, they're not. And that's why people struggle. And again, I'm not perfect, guys. Like I could be better about some stuff for sure. And for me, like I'm really prioritizing my business right now. And I have already had that conversation with my family and internally with myself of like, you are going to let some things slip like that you would normally be like really diligent about. But what you're not letting slip is work. And I'm in the chapter of my life where I'm growing my business. And that's what's one of my main priorities. Okay. But if you're 40 pounds overweight or you're really trying to get in shape, you do the same thing that I just said, but with fitness. And I see it all the time. Oh, fitness is my main priority. And that's what I'm mostly focused on. So like, my social life's not going to be as eventful. I'm maybe not going to always work overtime because I'm too tired. I can't go to the gym. Right. Like I'm not saying neglect your family, but those are things you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm sorry. You only have so much energy throughout the day. And as long as you have that conversation with yourself, then that's what you need to do. But for most men we work with, it's honestly just a small adjustment and integrating it in. Like I promise you, if our nurses that can work 12-hour shifts, 13, 14 with driving and come home and train, you can too, right? You can fit it in. You can make it work. Your workout doesn't need to be super intense, right? If you're working 8 to 10 hours, you have no excuse. Last thing I want to leave you with is I highly suggest that you don't do your workouts at the end of the day. If that's the only time you could do it because you're just not a morning person, that's totally fine. There's some benefits with lifting later, like you are a little bit stronger for most people. But I see people in this vicious cycle. They get off at 4 p.m. They're dog ass tired. So they take pre-workout at like 4 and they go to bed at 10. So not good. It's going to mess up your sleep. And then, like they're giving their body like what's left over for the day versus if they were to just wake up and go to the gym first thing in the morning. I know it's rough. Take your caffeine then, or your pre-workout or your coffee, whatever you're going to do. Then it has all day to wear off. You also feel really good and really alert the first half of work. And sure, by the end of the day, you're dead ass tired. You're supposed to be. You have to wind down. And I would rather be a little groggy and tired, like cooking dinner and like sitting on the couch with my family. And like, obviously you don't want to be, a half-assed dad or husband, like just dead. But like, I'd rather be a little more tired doing that stuff than at the gym, because the gym is solely based on your physical and mental energy, right? Like if you're a 4 out of 10, you're going to have a shitty workout, right? If you go home and you're a 4 out of 10 energy, like your family can still, be okay. You can just say, I'm really tired today. But what will probably happen, and that's only at the beginning, what will happen is you'll actually have more energy. And instead of crashing at 3 or 4, after you start getting in better shape and getting better cardio and eating better food, and because you're working out in the morning, you actually sleep better, you're going to sit there and have more energy. And I'm telling you right now, like that's probably one of the best things you can do. So if you're going to try to have an organized life and you're going to like time block and say, okay, I could squeeze it in here, try to do it earlier in the day, please. Okay. We're actively working with over 100 clients right now. And I'd say 75% of them work out in the morning, and the ones that work out in the evening, when they switch to like morning, so let's just say like 6 to 9 or 6 to 10, depending on their schedule, they're like, oh, I feel so much better. Yeah. And the cool thing about working out is you get to ride that post-workout high, right? Like you get to feel good all day. If you're working out at 6 p.m. when you get off work, you're going to sleep at 9, like fine. But I used to do that and my body was still wired. And by then I did need caffeine, and caffeine has a half life. So even if you feel tired and you're asleep, it is affecting your sleep. So, like I said, you're probably not lazy, right? And everybody has lazy tendencies, but you're probably not a lazy person. You're probably just extremely disorganized. And so you don't take action. And so you feel lazy. So if you feel like you need help, that's what we're here for, guys. You can book up a free call and I'm going to try to get you organized. But the totally free thing you can do right now is, I'm sure you have a Gmail. If you don't, go make one. They're free. Make a Google Calendar. I even have an iPhone. Okay. So I'm not an Android person. Sorry. Not sorry, but I use a Google Calendar just because it's very easy for invites. You can use whatever calendar system you want. I really like Google Calendar for like the color coordination, and you can share your calendar with your family. And maybe you can do that on other apps too, but like that's what I use. That's what I like. I find it very helpful, and it has changed my life because 2 years ago I did not use that. Okay. Even in like college, I used a paper planner. I was still very organized, but it sucked because some days I would leave my planner there and I'm like, like at my house, I'm like, I don't know what I have. I have to wait till I get home. So don't use a paper planner. Use your phone because your phone's on you all the time. Stay organized, have consistent action, and don't be lazy. Talk to you next time.